Hello, and welcome to the Sierra Speaker Series mini edition brought to you by the California State Parks and Sierra State Parks Foundation. My name is Denise. I'm the Events and Communications Manager for the Foundation. The Sierra Speaker Series shares and connects the rich and natural and cultural history of the Lake Tahoe Donner area with the community. Please donate to the Foundation today to support the interpretation, preservation, and restoration of the park system in the Lake Tahoe Donner area. Your tax-deductible donation will be kept locally and applied to priority projects. Please visit sierrastateparks.org to see how you can get involved and access upcoming events. With me today is Dave Depew. Dave is truly involved in the community. He serves on the board of the new Museum of Truckee History and Tahoe Silicon Mountain. He volunteers with the Truckee Donner Historical Society and the Truckee Donner Railroad Society. Dave has invested a good amount of time in researching and bringing us this great visual presentation of Truckee's history. Without further ado, Dave, please take it away.
Thank you, Denise. I'm going to talk about the last 60 years of history here in Truckee. So I'm going to do so in 3 milestones. The first would be the Winter Olympics at Squaw Valley. The second is the town's incorporation. And the third is with the town of Truckee today. Let's talk about Squaw Valley. And really that was Alex Cushing's vision. He met with the International Olympic Committee in Lausanne, Switzerland, and pitted Squaw Valley up against Innsbruck, St. Moritz, and Chamonix. This would be the 3 powerhouses of the skiing world. Being Austria, Switzerland, and France. So lots of challenges there, and yet he came out ahead. And so in 1956, he was preliminarily chosen to have the Olympics at Squaw Valley, and it took until 1958 for them to officially approve it. But in February of 1960, the Winter Olympics were here at Squaw Valley. But what was here in 1955 was not much. There was a great mountain, of course. There was one chairlift, which is a Squaw Peak chair, and a bold vision. But when you consider what had to be done to put together 27 events, it's quite something as to that they were able to pull that off. There were 30 nations that participated in the events. There were 31 nations here, and Greece showed up, but they did not actually participate. Well, they participated in the opening and closing ceremonies, but they did not participate in the events. The medals were split among 14 countries. The Soviet Union, or USSR, had 21 medals at the events, at the games, which was something because in the prior 7 Olympics, they'd only had 16 medals. So they did very well. US had 10, Germany had 8, Germany had 4 gold, so that was good for them. By the way, this is the united team of Germany, meaning East and West Germany together. Let's look at the venues for the Olympics. So here's a picture of Squaw Valley. And so let's talk about them in order of the skiing events. The ladies downhill came off of KT22 down here through the East Bowl. The men's giant slalom also came off of KT22 down the nose and down the east face here. Men's downhill came off of Chicken Bowl and up by through the Siberian Bowl, down Mountain Run, and ended effectively at the bottom of West Face. Ladies GS, ladies giant slalom, was off of what is today Red Dog. It was called Papoose Chair at the time. And then the 2 slalom events, the men's and the women's, were both done here at the bottom, where there's exhibition and the face of Red Dog. The base venues at Squaw, I'll break up into 3 sections. The first was the finishing of the events off the hills. Those were down here at the bottom. Second one would be the Olympic Village. Olympic Village was interesting in that was the first time that all of the athletes stayed together and ate together as well. The other thing you'll notice is that there are 6 waxing buildings, which I think has to do with the secrecy of the waxing. They used to jokingly refer to those as doping. And then the last thing I'll point out is that they had the Olympic Arena and the speed skating and rinks there. And so 2 out of the 3 areas look very similar as they do today. Another venue that they had for the 8th Winter Olympics was in McKinney Creek. This is where they had the cross-country and biathlon events. Biathlon is where they have cross-country skiing combined with shooting. This was a event that was added following the World War II. It started in 1948. The McKinney Creek location is on Lake Tahoe's west shore, over near Homewood and Tahoma. And so here on that creek, they put together many courses that you can see highlighted there in yellow. All right, let's talk about Blythe Arena. It was an interesting arena in that it had 3 sides that were fixed, but the 4th side had movable seats. They'd move those in for the figure skating and the ice hockey, but for the opening ceremony and the speed skating, they'd open those up. It's kind of fun to note that there was another stadium that had movable seats. That was built by Pittsburgh Des Moines Steel Company as well, and that was Candlestick Park, which was used by both the San Francisco Giants and the 49ers, and the 49ers started using that in 1970. For the Olympics, they brought in some talent from the California area, including Walt Disney. Walt Disney was a huge skiing enthusiast, and he took care of the pageantry. And so you can see here some of the events that he was responsible for. And he also brought in local high school bands to set up a parade, et cetera. So lots of fun there. Let me mention that there are a few stories from the 8th Winter Olympics that I wanted to highlight. The 3 that I'll point out are that there are some famous rocks that are available, that are visible today from the tram. Walt Disney had his artists emulate the shape of these rocks for the Big Thunder Mountain Ride, railroad ride at Disneyland. Secondly, I'll point out that there was a Miracle on Ice in both 1960 and in 1980, in which in both years the ice hockey team won from the USA won gold medal. The one in 1960 was interesting because the USA hockey team had to beat USSR and Czechoslovakia. The USSR was effectively a professional team, as that was what the only thing that those players did, and they were paid for their time. And the Cold War was on, so this is a highly controversial match, and USA's college players beat the professionals of USSR. The last thing I'll point out is that Blythe Arena is no longer with us today, and that was because the roof had been designed to melt snow with the heat generated from the ice refrigeration units. But during 1982, the U.S. Forest Service insulated the roof, and that insulation, once installed, did not allow the snow to melt, and the roof collapsed from the weight of the snow in March of 1983. So let's talk about the impact of the Olympics on Truckee. The first is that world-class skiing was now available in Northern California, thereby creating a tourist draw. This was one of the visions of C.F. McGlashan in 1890, So it was great that that now world-class skiing was available here in the Truckee area. Second thing is that it moved the center of the North Lake Tahoe winter sports away from Donner Summit, which was reachable through the railroad to places like Squaw Valley, Alpine, and eventually North Star, which were reached through the automobile. As a highlight or a sidelight, the Interstate 80 made it to Truckee by 1960, which was a big effort to do so, in part because of the Olympics. And lastly, I'll point out that the Olympics brought recognition, jobs, and money to the Truckee corridor. So let's talk about the town of Truckee and its incorporation. Looking at, let me do a little background before we do go into the town of Truckee. The town of Truckee is over here on the eastern side today. It was on the eastern side before, but it wasn't a town. But here's the shape of Nevada County, and over here would be the western side of Nevada County. And Truckee was feeling neglected by the western Nevada County for three reasons. Poor road maintenance, and by this, the joke in the town was that you could have a fishing contest in the potholes because they were so big. The other thing was that it was noted that potholes were so bad on Jaboom Street, the police could tell if you were drunk, because if you're driving straight down the street without swerving, you must be drunk. This comes from Truckee's first mayor, Kathleen Egan. Another reason that the town was feeling neglected was that we weren't getting what we thought was timely snow removal. And the last was the land use policies and the zoning rules were being dominated by the western county, and we wanted control of our own zoning rules. So this led to a vote on incorporation, and in 1992, the vote was 72% yes to incorporate, and there was a discussion about should we be called the town of Truckee or the city of Truckee. The town of Truckee with its alliteration 1, and it was published here in the Sierra Sun in 1992. You'll notice that on the website that you'll see that the town was incorporated in 1993. The reason that's noted as the year is because it wasn't until March of 1993 that the town council was voted in, and without having a government, it's hard to say that you're incorporated. So it spans the time, the 4 months from or 5 months from November of 92 to March 93 that we got things off the ground, and by July of 93 we were off and running. What happens with incorporation is that our population skyrocketed. Here we are bouncing along in the 2,000 people approximate range up through the 1990s, and then off it goes, and we're now up in the 20,000 range of full-time residents. But why did the population explode? And I'll claim that there were three reasons for that. The first was that the growth of income and prosperity of Silicon Valley and in the surrounding areas allowed for second home ownership in a world-class alpine playground. So so the money was there to explode. Second thing is the Truckee was closer to the San Francisco Bay Area than Lake Tahoe was by approximately an hour per weekend. So that was easier for people to get to Truckee. And the third thing was that the town council of Truckee seemed to be more predictable than the plethora of rules that were showing up in the Lake Tahoe area. The Truckee Regional Planning Agency, which had been formed in 1969, was instituting very strong environmental rules, which were wonderful for the lake, but it eventually led to a building moratorium in 1984 that was held in place for 3 years. So if you were going to make an investment into the Alpine Playground, it was a safer bet or safer investment in Truckee than it seemed to be in Lake Tahoe. So let's talk about Truckee today. I'll describe it as an historic mountain town. The history of this is very clear, in that we had the early California immigrants coming through here in 1844, including the first group was the Stevenson, Townsend, Murphy wagon train. And so that came through in 1844, followed by the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869. The railroad itself made it to Truckee in 1868, but the railroad wasn't completed at Promontory Point until 69. And we've got historic areas in the town, including our downtown, and we're about to get the Rocking Stone and Veterans Memorial Hall registered with the U.S. Department of Interior as well. And here's an example of a picture from 1876. So when the country's 100 years old, this is what Truckee looked like. And of course, we're a mountain town as well. It's the highest and longest tunnel on the Transcontinental Railroad is at Tunnel 6 at the Donner Summit. This tunnel is well known and is no longer used because when they went to expand it, it was going to be too hard in this hard granite. And so the Sierra granite meets the Great Basin here in our town. And so the Great Basin, as you know, covers the sandy area out here through a large portion of Nevada and into Utah. And you can actually see that here on this picture. There's a dividing line between the hard granite here and the soft sand over here on the left-hand side. I know it's not that soft, and it does have granite in it, but this is the Great Basin. But let me postulate that Truckee is also a modern town. And what makes a town modern? I'll claim there's several ways you can say that. One of which is that when we went to be incorporated, how did we get along with our neighbors and with our special districts that were in the area? These special districts had been founded before the town was incorporated. And so these 9 districts provided services to the residents of what became Truckee. And so when Truckee became incorporated, instead of closing down these 9 districts, we work with them. And so I claim that's a good modern thing to do, is to cooperate with people that are already doing their job well. Here's an example of what I mean by that. Here's the town of Truckee in purple. The hatched areas would be the PUD, sanitary districts are in green, and the fire districts are the red outline. And so our maps are not perfectly aligned, but we provide services to each other, and we do the right thing based on where you're located. Another thing that makes a town modern is that it provides for recreational opportunities for its residents. And so here are biking and hiking trails that are here, as well as having a respectful way to work with its residents and constituents. I think that the town does a nice job of that. And lastly, I'll point out that by having a land trust in the Truckee-Donner area, it's set up to do the right thing for future generations. So hats off to the Truckee-Donner Land Trust for having a big picture in mind and trying to preserve areas that will be available for future generations. So let me state then that I believe that Truckee is a modern historic mountain town for the reasons mentioned and noted above, or noted here on the slide. And I'll also say that it's modern because we have so many roundabouts. So with that, I say thank you for your time, and I encourage you to come visit the new Museum of Truckee History. It opened in May of this year, 2021. and at the Truckee Train Depot. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. If you enjoyed this short snippet, please be sure to check out the full version on our YouTube or Facebook channel. That concludes the Sierra Speaker Series brought to you by the California State Parks and Sierra State Parks Foundation. The Speaker Series shares and connects the rich cultural and natural history of the Lake Tahoe Donner area with the community. Please donate to the foundation today to support the interpretation, restoration, and preservation of the park system in the Lake Tahoe Donner area. Your tax-deductible donation will be kept locally and applied to priority projects. Please visit sierrastateparks.org to see how you can get involved and access upcoming events. Thanks, everybody. Bye.